everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and let's jump right into it. You guys know why you're here. This is part 2 of my look at all the DC Rebirth books from June. In case you missed part 1, it's right there. In that video, we talked about Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Detective Comics, and Action Comics. So if you want to hear about any of those books, go ahead and click on that video right there. In this video, we're going to be talking about Aquaman, Titans, Flash, Green Lanterns, and Green Arrow. So if you want to hear about those books, then stay right here. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. First off, I'm going to talk about Aquaman. Now in the last video, I said that I like going from my least favorite to my favorite to kind of like ramp up and get more excited as we go along. And yeah, I gotta admit, Aquaman, I don't want to say any of these books are the worst, but this one's definitely the worst in my opinion. At least the Rebirth issue was. As I mentioned before, the whole point of the Rebirth one-shots is to introduce people to these characters. It's to explain who they are, how everybody feels about them, what their mission is, what the upcoming series is going to be about. And this issue did indeed do that. It did bring up things like, how do people feel about him? Why does everyone think he's a joke? How do the people of Atlantis feel about him? Can he actually communicate with fish? Is he actually powerful? It brings up all these things and it addresses many misconceptions that people have about Aquaman, and that's great. But the problem is, everything that it addressed in this issue was also addressed in the first issue of Jeff Johns' New 52 Aquaman book. And that was kind of a momentous occasion when they did that. When they addressed everything in that issue, everybody went, oh my god, people are finally talking about all this stuff with Aquaman. They're finally addressing what everyone says about Aquaman, and they addressed it beautifully. They actually had Aquaman going around and interacting with people, and those concerns came up through those interactions and actually pushed the story ahead. In this one, it's a narrator just telling us all these things. It's a narrator telling us all these things while Aquaman is in a fight with someone, and it doesn't even feel like Aquaman really is the star of the issue. It feels like whoever is narrating it is the star of this issue. And I'm not going to reveal who the narrator is, but the narrator speaks so properly and just flatly, just incredibly flat. It is just, here is how the people of Earth feel about Aquaman. They view him as a joke. The people of Atlantis see him as an outcast. And it was just hammering all that in so much that it was just, I don't mean this as a pun, it was dry. It was a dry Aquaman book, and you do not want Aquaman to be dry. So honestly, this one was my least favorite. This was the one in which I was like, oh, this is kind of the first misstep of this Rebirth. However, I do have to bring this up. There was kind of a divide in my store among the people who read that book. About half of us felt the way that I did. We were kind of like, oh god, this is not right. Don't do this. But the other half really enjoyed it. The other half of my employees thought it was actually really good. And then we actually sat down and talked amongst ourselves, and I realized something. All the people who liked this issue had not read Jeff Johns' Aquaman. They had not read that issue that I mentioned that addressed all this same stuff, but I felt did it better, and all the people who didn't like this issue, they had read the Jeff Johns Aquaman. So I feel like I can't really judge this all that well, because there is something permanently lodged in my brain that is very, very similar to this issue, but was just done better. However, then when the actual series began with Aquaman issue number 1, I gotta admit, it was actually pretty good. They actually turned it around. That story actually did focus on Aquaman. It wasn't a narrator telling us everything. We actually did get to see Aquaman going out there and trying to be a diplomat to the surface world. And we actually got to see Mera being a diplomat, which I actually really enjoyed because it was kind of fun watching Mera actually really fit into this role. Because Mera was always more like, I don't really know about these service people. I mean, I love you and you're part service, but I don't really know. So watching her actually kind of step up and be great at this diplomacy thing, it was like, oh, that's really good for her character. And I will say that the villain of Black Manta shows up, which, it's an Aquaman book, there's no surprise that Black Manta is showing up. But when Black Manta shows up, he's actually a really good villain. He was actually really threatening. So it's very odd for me to go so far from one direction to another on a series, but yeah, with the Rebirth one-shot, I was like, yeah, I don't know about this. You can totally skip it. I don't have faith in this book. And then with issue 1, I was like, okay, I kind of have some faith in this book. It actually does look pretty good now. So it's still too early for me to totally recommend this issue, But if you are a big Aquaman fan, and if you've already checked out that Rebirth one-shot and you did enjoy it, then yeah, keep reading it. For everybody else, I'd say wait until like issue 2 or 3, hear a couple more reviews on it. Next up is The Flash, and when it came to the Rebirth one-shot, I thought that was really effective. I thought that it did a great job of introducing us to The Flash, what's been going on with him, his supporting characters, and also let us know what was going to be the thing that happened in his series. It let us know what the threat was that would be coming. So I think that they actually accomplished that very well, but the thing that I really enjoyed about the Rebirth one-shot is that it actually showed us what happened right after what happened in Rebirth. It showed us right after he met Wally and he went, yeah, 10 years have been stolen from our lives, so you gotta go and talk to Batman. It showed us what happened immediately after that. It showed him going, talking to Batman, them examining that button that he found. So I really enjoyed that. I don't get the feeling like that's going to come up that much in his actual series, but it was good to see the next steps, the things that came right after that cliffhanger. From there we move into the actual Flash series itself, and I'll admit, when they announced that Joshua Williamson would be writing The Flash, I was confused, because The Flash is all about hope. It's about being upbeat. And Joshua Williamson is known for writing books about serial killers and really graphic, horrifying serial killers. So I was like, why the hell did you pick him for this book? But then, as soon as in this issue, Barry shows up to a crime scene and he starts analyzing the crime scene, and we see the entire police force there and all of them interacting, and went, oh, that's why you picked him, because this is a guy who knows how to write police procedurals. He knows how to write crime scenes. He knows how to write a police force interacting with itself. And yeah, I think he did that pretty darn well. I think that this team came together and it was really cool seeing all the police members interact, and also seeing the way that Barry broke down the crime scene. It made you go, it's not just that he's the Flash that makes him a great hero, it's that this guy actually is smart and he is good at his job. But he didn't just write him well as Barry Allen, he also wrote him well as the Flash. There's a moment in here in which the Flash sees that there are two problems happening at the same time, and he's like, okay, even if I'm the fastest man alive, I can't be in two places at once. So I have to actually think about which of these two I have to confront. And it was great seeing the way that Barry's mind actually worked in a situation like that. So yeah, I've been pretty impressed with this book so far. And also, I'll just say this, I know that The Flash has a lot of fans from the TV series. In fact, literally the day before this book came out, a customer came to my store, said she had never bought a comic book before, but she was a huge fan of the Flash TV show. She had been reading all this stuff online about how the comic is different, all the stuff going on, like she knew about Rebirth, and she was like, okay, so this is the best time for me to jump on, right? And I was reading this book, and the moment that it starts with him going, my name is Barry Allen, and I am the fastest man alive, I went, they're totally aiming this at the TV crowd. But it's not like pandering to the TV crowd, like it does feel like its own original series. It just feels like a series that's easily accessible by both comic book fans and the TV fans. So I'd say that The Flash is a success. Next up is Green Lanterns, and this issue has been kind of dividing people. Half the people who have read the Green Lanterns books have been going, yeah, this is my least favorite of Rebirth. And the other half have been really enjoying it. And I'm in the I've really been enjoying it camp. First off, with the Rebirth issue, I think he did a great job of introducing us to these two new Green Lanterns, which you really need to do because a lot of people know the Green Lanterns, but you know, they know Hal Jordan, they know John Stewart, they know Guy Gardner, they know Kal Rayner. They don't know Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz, the two newest Green Lanterns who are going to be the star of this series, and I feel like the Rebirth issue actually did do a good job of introducing us to them, but it also gave us a good reason why these two would have to be working together. All the other Green Lanterns have gone off into space, but there always have to be two Green Lanterns per sector, so they're the two that are left. They're the two that have to stay and guard planet Earth, but they can't quite get along, you know, their personalities don't mix, but Hal Jordan comes in and goes, you kids gotta stop fighting. And I'm gonna force you to stop fighting by fusing your lanterns into one. So now if either of you have to power up, you have to be together. You need to power up, you have to work together to summon out your lantern. I was like, that's actually smart. That is actually a brilliant way to force these two to work together. And in issue number 1, you actually do see them working together. And one of the things that I really enjoyed is that in the Rebirth one-shot, it was the first time they ever met, and they were like, I don't know you, our personalities aren't mixing well, we're clashing with each other. But then as soon as Hal Jordan says, you have to work together, in issue 1, you see them working together. I mean, it's not like fixed instantly solved, their personalities still don't mix. However, they are like, we're going to be adults about this, and we do actually have to work with each other. So I actually think that that said a lot about the direction this book was going to go. But one of the things I really loved about this issue number 1 is that when you see them working together, you see them actually going into a house where an alien's body has been found, and when they go to the house, they're acting like cops. this totally feels like a cop show, like two cops going in to bust up a house. And that's great because the Green Lanterns have always been called the cops of space. I mean, Hal Jordan always refers to himself as a cop. He always says that my beat is Sector 2814, but you know, it's their space cops. It doesn't feel like actual cops. This one actually felt like actual cops. The way that they were breaking in and that they were being fired at and they had to work with each other, it was like, this actually does feel like I'm watching a cop show, except replace the guns with power rings. And it's being written by Sam Humphries, and Sam Humphries is a guy with big, crazy ideas, and he's not afraid to put those ideas out there. And at the end of this issue, he introduces a whole new mythos to the Green Lanterns. Like, he doesn't change their history, but he comes in and goes, oh, here's some legend, or here's some power that they have never mentioned before, but they do that so often with the Green Lanterns, it doesn't feel weird to me. Whenever they introduce something new to the Green Lantern mythos, I never look at like, oh geez, where did that come from? I'm like, oh okay, a new thing's been discovered. And I love that Sam Humphries, even though he is coming into a place where Jeff Johns, for years, just reestablished this world into something brand new, he's still not afraid to keep adding on to that world. And I really enjoyed the new stuff they did add. And also, I'm really enjoying the two new Green Lanterns, especially Jessica Cruz. Jessica Cruz is very different from all the other Green Lanterns because she actually has agoraphobia, she has social anxiety, she's actually afraid to go outside. And a lot of people are saying, well, then how on earth did she get a Green Lantern ring? Because to have a Green Lantern ring, you have to overcome fear. And I think that this issue actually did a good job of addressing the fact that it's like, just because her mind is telling her she has to be afraid at all times, that doesn't mean that she can't overcome fear. Yeah, you see her out in public in a huge crowd, and she is terrified of it, but she's still there. She's still going out there, like, I gotta be here, I gotta be here. And it's like, yeah, she's facing her fear right there. And I actually have a coworker who admits that she also has social anxiety. She also feels the same way in those situations, and she said that she is in love with Jessica Cruz. Because as she read this, she went, finally there's a character who represents me in a comic. So I really have to applaud this book for doing that. Next up is Green Arrow, and many people said that this was probably the best Rebirth issue. I might have to agree with them. It's up there. It's in my top 3 because, as I said, the point of these Rebirth one-shots was to introduce people to the characters, but also say this is what was wrong with the previous version of these characters, and now we're all going to fix it in this issue, and we're all going to set them down the right path. And as I read this Green Arrow issue, I went, that's Green Arrow. That is absolutely Green Arrow. First off, his redesign, just the fact that they gave him the goatee, I was like, I don't know if it's just the artist or if they actually did this in the story in some way, shape, or form, but he just looks older. And to me, Green Arrow can't be a young guy. I mean, sure, at some point he was obviously a young guy, but the thing that makes Green Arrow work so much to me is that he's the guy who's been around. He's the guy who's seen it all. He's the guy who has tackled everything that you can imagine, and he's done it all just with a bow and arrow. And as I was looking at this, it's like, he does look older, he does look more experienced, he does look wiser, which is what Green Arrow should be. But also, we see him and Black Canary finally meet, and there's instant chemistry. And I think that they handled that chemistry incredibly well, and I won't lie to you, it just felt good to see Black Canary and Green Arrow back together again. It did. It was like finding an old, comfortable jacket in the back of your closet, and you slip it on, it's like, this still fits. That's the exact feeling that I got from seeing these two characters together. But also, Green Arrow has always been a liberal, like a loud, outspoken liberal. I am not afraid to express how I feel. And all throughout both the Rebirth one-shot and the first issue of this series, he is doing nothing but just going, no, here's my opinions, here's my political opinions, and I don't care if it loses me readers. That's how I feel. And it's like, yes, Green Arrow should be a guy who expresses all of his liberal opinions, and the people who are writing that book should never at any point stop and go, oh Jesus, is this going to offend some readers? Is this going to turn some of our readers off? No, because that's the entire point of Green Arrow. Like, there's a moment that I absolutely love in issue 1 where he finds out that crimes are being committed at the docks, and he finds a dock worker who has been turning a blind eye to it because he's been getting paid off, and when he confronts the dock worker about it, he says, listen man, I'm sorry, but my family has bills. I have to help them out. This was the only way that I could do that. And he just goes, okay, well tell you what. You work for me now. How much were they paying you? I'll double it. All you gotta do is just tell me when stuff is going wrong. It's like, that's who Green Arrow is. Green Arrow is a guy who would realize that there's a difference between a criminal and just someone who society has put in a position where they have no choice but to help out with these crimes. And if Green Arrow can help that person and keep them off the wrong track, and help them to do something good, Green Arrow would absolutely do that. Now, the only problem I had with issue number 1 was that I'll admit there are a few moments here and there in which I was like, yeah, that dialogue is a tad bit weak. Not bad, just it needed a little bit of a punch up. But also, at the end of this issue, they had set up, in the Rebirth issue, this new villain. I was like, oh, who could this villain be? At the end of the first issue, they go ahead and reveal who it is. And it's not even like a subtle reveal. It is we meet this guy for 1 page, bam, he is that villain, and instantly plans are in action. I was like, I need a little bit more setup. I need you to do a little bit more setup, a little bit more teasing with this. It felt a little bit too soon to just rush that out there. So to me, the Green Arrow series is really strong. It just needs someone to come in and just do like one quick buffer on it. Someone just come in and do like one quick punch up on bits of the dialogue, and maybe just a little bit of the pacing can be fixed. But aside from that, I am really enjoying Green Arrow. And lastly is Titans. Now, only the Titan Rebirth one-shot has come out, but I'll be totally honest with you, this is my absolute favorite of all the Rebirth one-shots. Because, as I've mentioned many times before in this video, the whole point of the Rebirth one-shots was to come in and not only tell us what they were going to do with these series, but also kind of address the problems of these books and start fixing them. And this issue did that wonderfully to me, because this issue is all about Wally West showing up and he has to make his friends remember him. And it's not like he has to do anything big and complicated. As soon as they touch him, they just instantly remember. However, the thing that has bugged me so much about the Teen Titans in the New 52 is that they didn't feel like a family. In fact, throughout most of the Teen Titans run, they felt like they barely even knew each other or didn't even really want to work with each other. They felt like outcasts who were just brought together. Or at best, they felt like superheroes who worked with each other. And they were friends, but they were not a family. And that was the thing that always defined the Titans. They were a family. And as these Titans touch Wally West, they start getting their memories of him back. And as you see those memories come back, it was like, that's it. Wally is like step by step mending this universe together, and it's bringing this team together. And as you watch them all come together and their memories start to reform, they became a family again. Like watching their interactions with each other just in their memories. I was like, this is all the best stuff from the Titans. Like there was a moment in which Dick Grayson mentions what he remembered about Wally, and it was a time in which Wally convinced him to steal the Batmobile because they just wanted to take out for a joyride. And I was like, that's what teenage superheroes do. That is a thing that your goofy pal Wally would totally convince Dick Grayson to do, and that'd be a wacky fun adventure for you two to go on. That's exactly the stuff that I loved about the Titans. And there's a moment at the end of it in which Wally picks up a picture of all of them together. He goes, listen, someone has come in. They've stolen 10 years from our lives. This is a huge thing, and we might not even be big enough to face it, but I know that we will still win in the end. Why? Because we're going to do it together. And the moment he said together, that was the key word. That was the word I was missing from Titans. Titans together. It's this idea of all of them coming together, and they are a family. Just looking at that photo of them all together, I was like, that's the Titans right there. So yeah, this book absolutely fixed the Titans for me, and it made me really want to read what was coming up, because I don't care if they don't even do anything in this upcoming series aside from just hang out with each other. If they hang out with each other and they bond like this, that's all that I need, because that to me was the best stuff about the Titans. So there you go, everybody. That was part 2 of my look at DC Rebirth. Hopefully it was way shorter than part 1. Jeez, part 1 is long, but if you do want to watch it, then make sure that you click on that video at the end of this. Also, if you like this episode, then make sure that you hit subscribe and that you share it all around the web. It's the best way to help out this channel. You guys have been doing that a lot lately, and it really helps us. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, make sure to leave a comment letting me know what you thought about these Rebirth one-shots or about any of the new series that have started up, and give us a thumbs up. I think it helps out this channel in some way, makes us easier to find. I don't really know what that thumb up button does, but I appreciate it when you give me one. So thank you guys very much. Come back next time.